walls turned tawny, covered by monkeys of various hues, yellow as paddy ears, grey as shirshah flowers, red as the rising sun, and white as flax or hemp. The Rakshasas with their wives and elders were amazed by this spectacle. The monkey warriors broke into palatial mansions, shattering catapults and throwing stones down onto the city streets. As the battle raged on, hundreds of thousands of Rakshasas, capable of assuming any form, it will emerge to defend their king. The night wanderers poured arrows upon the monkeys, forcing them to leave the walls. Many monkey chiefs fell from the ramparts, mantled by lances, while numerous Rakshasas were crushed beneath falling columns and gateways. The monkeys and wretches. The sun beat down on the battlefield, casting a golden glow over the chaos that unfolded before Markandeya's eyes. Prahasta, a formidable warrior, charged towards Vibhishana with a mighty yell, his mass at the ready. The air was electric with tension as the two enemies clashed, but Vibhishana stood firm, his wisdom and strength unwavering like the ancient mountains of Himava. The mighty armed Vibhishana raised a javelin adorned with 100 bells, imbuing it with sacred mantras that crackled with energy. With a swift and deadly motion, he hurled the javelin at Prahasta's head. The force of the impact was like thunder, shattering Prahasta's skull and sending his body crashing to the ground. Markandeya watched in awe as Prahasta lay still, his once mighty frame now broken like a tree ravaged by the wind. The sudden loss of their leader sent shockwaves through Damracha's army. The dark warrior rushed towards the monkey host with reckless abandon, his soldiers advancing like dark clouds bearing terrible mien. But Hanuman, the son of Pavana, stood firm, his eyes blazing with determination. As the monkeys faltered, Hanuman charged forward, his massive frame and fierce roar striking fear into the hearts of their enemies. A battle raged on, with warriors clashing in a frenzy of steel and fury. Damracha loosed volleys of winged shafts upon the monkey host, but Hanuman countered with unyielding ferocity. The two titans exchanged blows, their strength and speed matched only by the great Indra and Prahlada. In days of yore, in a burst of rage, Hanuman struck down Damracha, shattering his chariot and sending him tumbling to the ground. The monkeys, emboldened by Hanuman's victory, surged forward with renewed valor. The Rakshasas were routed, fleeing in terror towards Lanka as their comrades fell left and right. When they finally reached the safety of the city walls, they informed Ravana of the devastating news. Prahasta and Damracha had fallen to the mighty monkeys. The dark king's face twisted with anguish as he absorbed the weight of his losses. He knew that the time for Kumlakarna to act had come. Summoning his brother from a deep slumber, Ravana addressed him in hushed tones. Kumlakarna, you are fortunate indeed to have known such profound repose. But now our great kinsmen lie slain, and Rima's army threatens to consume us all. With a heavy heart, Ravana instructed Kumlakarna to don his armor and march against the invaders, accompanied by Vajravgya and Pramathan, the younger brothers of Dashana. The dark king's words hung in the air like in the heart of the battle-scared land. Kumlakarna, the fearsome Rakshasa, emerged from the city, his massive form a testament to his unyielding spirit. He strode forth with his entourage, eager to confront the victors who had claimed the spoils of war. As he approached, the armies of Rima's monkey troops came into view, their banners fluttering in the wind. Kumlakarna beheld the son of Sumitra, Rama, standing tall, bow in hand, his eyes fixed intently on the horizon. The monkey warriors, emboldened by their leader's presence, advanced swiftly towards Kumlakarna. Surrounding him with a forest of spears and arrows, they hurled themselves at the Rakshasa, raining down blows from all sides. But he laughed at their feeble attempts. His hunger unsatisfied, with a deafening roar, Kumlakarna devoured Chalad, Chandakala, and Bhagrava, the leaders of the monkey troops, their screams echoing through the battlefield. The other monkeys cowered in terror, their cries of fear reaching Sugriva, who rallied them with a fierce battle cry. He charged forward, trunk of a solid tree in hand, striking Kumlakarna's head with a resounding blow. The Rakshasa's laughter turned to fury as he seized Sugriva, dragging him towards the sea. But Rama and Lakshmana would not be deterred. The son of Sumitra rushed forward, his winged arrow flashing in the sunlight, striking Kumlakarna with unyielding force. The Rakshasa's armor shattered, the arrow piercing his chest, and he released Sugriva from his grasp. Kumlakarna, enraged, grasped the mountainous boulder as his new weapon, charging towards Rama with a deafening roar. But Lakshmana was quick to respond, cutting off Kumbhakarna's arms with razor-sharp arrows, each one striking true. Yet the Rakshasa's body regenerates, and he assumed an enormous, formed its multiple heads, legs, and arms, a testament to his unyielding vitality. Rama, undaunted, wielded the Brahmastra, unleashing its celestial fury upon Kumbhakarna. The Rakshasa let out a deafening scream as the divine energy tore through him, reducing him to a lifeless mass. On the battlefield, the monkey warriors rejoiced at their victory. But the battle was far from over as the dust settled. Vajrayogya and Pramathan, the younger brothers of Dashana, rallied the Rakshasa troops, charging towards Lakshmana with unrelenting fury. But the son of Sumitra stood firm, his arrows ringing down upon them like a storm. Hanumana and Nala joined the sun was setting over the battlefield, casting a golden glow over the carnage that had unfolded. Markandeya's words hung in the air as he recounted the tale of Ravana's determination to vanquish his enemies. The king's son, Indrajit, stood tall, his eyes blazing with a fierce intensity as he prepared for battle. Ravana's voice boomed out across the field, his words echoing off the trees. As he addressed his son, Indrajit, my slayer of foes, you have brought me glory and fame by vanquishing the thousand-eyed Lord of Sakya. Now I charge you with a new task. Slay Rama, Savrava, and Lakshmana in battle. They are your enemies, and it is up to you to bring about their downfall. Indrajit's face set in determination as he nodded his head in acceptance. He quickly ascended his chariot, his armor glinting in the fading light of day. As he rode towards the battlefield, he loudly announced his name, challenging Lakshmana to a single combat. Lakshmana, with his auspicious marks and his bow at the ready, rushed towards Indrajit. The air was filled with the sound of clashing steel as the two warriors faced off against each other. Indrajit hurled javelins at Lakshmana, but the prince cut them down with ease, using his keen arrows. Undaunted, Indrajit took up a lance and struck Hangada, the son of Valaya, on the head, but Lakshmana was quick to intervene, cutting the lance into pieces. Before it could do any harm, the battle raged on, with both sides trading blows and neither gaining the upper hand. As the intense fight, Indrajit's chariot was destroyed by a mighty soul tree hurled by Ingada. The son of Ravana disappeared from sight, using his powers of illusion to evade his enemies. But Rama was not one to be deterred. He proceeded towards the spot where Indrajit had vanished and began to protect his troops with care. Indrajit, however, continued to shower arrows upon Rama and Lakshmana, who were now both pierced in every part of their bodies. The battle was fierce, with the invisible Rakshasa striking down anyone who dared to approach him. But even as he wielded his arrows, Indrajit's powers of illusion were beginning to win. The monkeys, determined to protect their allies, charged forward armed with huge masses of stone. They pierced the firmament, seeking out the invisible warrior, who was ceaselessly showering his arrows upon them. But Indrajit was relentless, and he continued to afflict both the monkeys and Rama's brothers with his shafts. As the battle raged on, the heroic brothers Rama and Lakshmana dropped down on the ground, their bodies pierced all. As the sun beat down on the battlefield, Markandeya beheld a heart-wrenching sight. The two brothers Rama and Lakshmana lay prostrate on the ground, their bodies pierced by hundreds of arrows. They resembled two hawks trapped in a cage, helpless and immobile. Zagraiva, the king of the monkeys, stood beside them, surrounded by his loyal companions, Sushna, Mainda, Dwaivida, Kamuda, Ingada, Hanuman, Nila, Tara, and Nala. They watched with concern as their friends struggled to regain consciousness. Vibhishana, who had achieved success in another part of the battlefield, soon arrived at the same and used his powerful whip on Prajna to awaken Rama and Lakshmana from their insensibility. As the brothers slowly regained their strength, Sugriva carefully extracted the arrows from their bodies. He applied a potent medicine called Vaisalya, infused with celestial mantras, which alleviated their pain and fatigue. With the arrows removed, Rama and Lakshmana rose to their feet, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Vibhishana approached Rama, his hands joined in respect, and presented him with a sacred water from Kavara, the king of the Gaikas. This enchanted water would grant them the power to see invisible creatures. Vibhishana explained. Rama and Lakshmana, along with Sugriva, Jambuvan, Hanuman, Angada, Mainda, Dwaivida, Nila, and many other monkeys laid their eyes with this sacred water. As they did so, a remarkable transformation took place. Their eyes became capable of beholding things that were previously invisible to them. The power of the enchanted water had been fulfilled. Meanwhile, Indrajit, the son of Ravana, returned to the battlefield, eager to continue the fight. He informed his father of his success and then rejoined the battle, positioning himself at the forefront of his army. Vibhishana guided Lakshmana towards Indrajit, who was now eager for combat. The two warriors clashed in a spectacular duel, their arrows flying swiftly. As they exchanged blows, the air was filled with the sound of clashing steel, and the scent of sweat and blood. Indrajit pierced Lakshmana's body with arrows that seemed to penetrate his very vitals. But the son of Sumitra retaliated with fiery arrows, striking Indrajit senseless. With wrath, battle raged on, with both warriors exchanging blows and neither gaining the upper hand. However, Lakshmana soon gained the advantage, using three-winged arrows imbued with the energy and effulgence of fire to defeat his adversary. With one arrow he severed Indrajit's arm from his body. With another he dropped his other arm to the ground, and with the third, the sun was setting over the battlefield, casting a golden glow over the chaos that unfolded before it. Markandeya watched as Ravana, his ten-necked form radiating fury and despair, ascended his chariot adorned with gold and gems. The Rakshasa king's eyes blazed with a fierce determination as he led his army of terrible warriors against Rama, their trunks swaying like mighty trees. The monkey chiefs Mainda, Nila, Nala, Ingada, Hanuman, and Jambavan surrounded Ravana, their troops at the ready as they clashed. The battle raged on, with the monkeys using their powerful trunks to uproot trees and send them crashing down upon the Rakshasas. But Ravana was not one to be defeated so easily. He summoned his powers of illusion, and forth from his body sprang hundreds and thousands of Rakshasas, armed to the teeth. Rama, however, was no stranger to the art of combat. With a celestial weapon he slew the illusions, sending them crashing to the ground. Ravana tried again, producing warriors who resembled Rama and Lakshmana. But the brothers were not fooled. They charged forward their bows, singing as they cut down the Rakshasas. Matalayendra's charioteer appeared on the scene, driving a magnificent car with tawny horses that shone like the sun. He offered Rama the use of this divine vehicle, promising that it would grant him victory over Ravana. But Rama was skeptical, thinking it might be another illusion conjured by the Rakshasa. King Vibhishana intervened, assuring Rama that Matala's words were true and that the chariot belonged to Indra himself. Convinced, Rama climbed aboard, his heart filled with determination as he rode towards Ravana. A deafening roar echoed through the skies, as if the very gods themselves were rejoicing at the prospect of battle. The two enemies clashed in a frenzy of steel and fire, their movements lightning fast as they exchanged blows. Ravana hurled a terrible javelin that seemed to embody Indra's thunderbolt, but Rama quickly cut it down with his sharp arrows. The Rakshasa king was taken aback by this feat, but he soon regained his composure. Undeterred, Ravana unleashed a hail of whetted arrows and countless other weapons upon Rama, who stood firm against the onslaught. But as the battle raged on, the monkeys began to falter their courage, shaken by the sheer ferocity of the Rakshasa king's illusions. Rama knew he had to end this quickly. He drew out an arrow with golden feathers and handsome wings, imbuing it with the Brahmastra mantra. As he fixed it to his bow, a collective gasp went up from the gods in heaven. In the aftermath of the great victory over Ravana, the wicked king of the Rakshasas, Rama, the illustrious hero stood triumphant alongside his loyal friends. The celestial beings, led by the wise sages, gathered to pay their respects to Rama, hailing him as a champion of justice and righteousness. As they worshipped Rama with hymns and offerings, the firmament seemed to rejoice, shining brightly like a festival in full bloom. The ten-necked Rakshasa of Ravana's most fearsome lieutenant had been defeated, and Lanka was now under Vibhishana's control. Meanwhile, Avindaya, an old and wise counselor of Ravana, emerged from the city of Lanka with Sita, Janaka's daughter, walking behind him. With great humility, Avindaya approached Rama and offered Sita as a gift. But Rama, still wary of the suspicion surrounding Sita's abduction by Ravana, hesitated to accept her. Sita, overcome with grief and shame, fell at Rama's feet. Like a plantain tree severed from its roots, her radiant complexion, which had shone brightly just moments before, now dulled as if reflected in a mirror blown away by the breath of the moth. The monkeys and Lakshmana stood still, their faces frozen with sorrow. Just then Brahma, the creator of the universe, appeared on his chariot, accompanied by other gods, including Indra, Agni, Vayu, Himavarana, and Sakra. They all testified to Sita's innocence, affirming that she was not guilty of any fault. The wind god declared, "I am the god of wind. I have witnessed everything." The princess of Mithala, as Celeste, the god's words were like a balm to Rama's heart, and he finally accepted Sita as his wife. Dasaratha, his father, was overjoyed and gave his blessings for Rama to return to Ayodhya and rule The kingdomus Rama did farewell to the celestials. Brahma bestowed upon him the boon of firm adherence to virtues and invincibility against all foes. Sita also granted a boon to Hanuman, her loyal companion, asking that his life last as long as Rama's achievements were remembered with the gods. Blessings and their own joyous hearts, Rama and Sita returned to Ayodhya, where they were welcomed with great fanfare by the people. The charioteer of Sakra praised Rama, saying that he had dispelled the sorrow of all creatures from the celestials to humans, and that his name would be remembered for ages to come as the celestials disappeared into thin air. Matalai, the charioteer of Indra, worshipped Rama, hailing him as a hero who had restored. In the midst of a tumultuous time, Rama, a mighty armed prince, had endured unimaginable hardships due to his exile in the forest. His trusted advisor and friend Markandeya stood by him, offering words of comfort, and Salisoteja among men. Markandeya began, "Do not grieve for what has befallen. You are a Kshatriya, a warrior born to wield strength and conquer foes. Your path is one of valor and honor, where the rewards of battle are attainable." Markandeya's words were like a balm to Rama's weary soul. He recalled the countless battles fought by his brother Bhima, who is renowned for his invincible prowess. The memory of their brother Dhananjaya, whose name struck fear into the hearts of enemies, also brought a glimmer of hope. Markandeya continued, "Even the gods themselves, led by Indra and the Asuras, have to tread in your path, O mighty one. You are not alone in this journey." As Rama listened intently, Markandeya spoke of the great deeds accomplished by their Olis. The heroic sons of Madravasi, with their unyielding strength and skill, were a formidable force on the battlefield. Krishna, the daughter of Drupada, had been rescued from the clutches of the wicked Saindaba. Thanks to the bravery of these mighty warriors, Markandeya's words painted vivid pictures in Rama's mind. The king Jayadratha, the vanquished and powerless, the princess of Vaiha, rescued with the aid of monkeys, and bears the memory of their ancestors' triumph, stirred something deep within Rama. He thought of the time when Rama himself had fought against the ten-necked Rakshasa, a creature of unspeakable ferocity. The recollection brought a surge of determination to his heart. Markandeya's words had awakened a spark within him, reminding him that even in the darkest of times there was always hope. As Rama reflected on the past glories, his sorrow began to lift. He looked up at Markandeya with newfound resolve, and the wise sage saw the change in his eyes. The king's sorrows were not yet forgotten, but they no longer weighed him down. With a newfound sense of purpose, Rama spoke to Markandeya. Once more his voice filled with determination. The words of comfort had worked their magic, and Rama was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Markandeya smiled, knowing that the king's spirit had been revived. The wise sage watched as Rama's shoulders squared, his eyes burning with a fierce inner light. In this moment, Markandeya knew that the king would emerge stronger than ever, his heart filled with the courage and resilience of a true warrior. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the
In the realm of ancient India, a mighty king named Aswapati ruled with virtue and piety. He was renowned for his generosity, self-control, and devotion to the Brahmanas. Despite being childless in his old age, he remained steadfast in his vows and practices, offering 10,000 oblations to the fire each day. His heart's desire was to have offspring worthy of his noble lineage. On day as Aswapati completed 18 years of rigorous penance, the goddess Savitri emerged from the Agnotra fire. Pleased with the king's unwavering dedication, she appeared before him in embodied form and spoke words that would change the course of his life. "I have been gratified, O king, with the Brahmacharya practices, the purity and self-restraint. Ask for the boon that thou desirest." Aswapati humbly replied, "May many sons be born unto me, worthy of my race." Savitri smiled and said, "Through the favor granted by the self-create, there shall speedily be born unto thee on earth a daughter of great energy." And with those words she vanished. The king, overjoyed, returned to his city, where he continued to rule his subjects. Just layers passed, and Aswapati's eldest queen gave birth to a child. But little did the king know that in another part of the kingdom a remarkable event was unfolding. In the womb of the princess of Malava, a daughter was growing, nurtured by the blessings of Savitri. When the time came, she was born with lotus-like eyes, and was named Savitri after her divine benefactress. As the years went by, the king's daughter grew into a radiant maiden, resembling the goddess Sri herself. Her beauty and energy captivated all who saw her, But none could match her splendor at the time of her puberty. She performed the sacred rituals to honor the family deity and offered oblations to the fire. A king overjoyed by his daughter's arrival at maturity summoned her to his presence with a mixture of sadness and urgency. He said, "Daughter, the time for bestowing thee is come. Yet none asketh thee, do thou thyself seek for a husband equal to thee in qualities." He instructed her to listen carefully to the words of the twice-born ones, which would guide her in finding a worthy suitor. Savitri, with her heart filled with devotion and duty, set out on a journey to find a husband worthy of her noble lineage. Ascending a golden chariot, she traveled to the delightful asylum of the royal sages, accompanied by her father's aged counselors. There she worshipped the feet of the wise ones and began to roam over all the woods, distributing wealth in sacred regions and seeking guidance from the foremost of the twice-born ones. Thus began the epic.
In the midst of his court, King Aswapati sat with the celestial sage Narada, engaged in a lively conversation. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Savitri, accompanied by her father's counselors, who had just returned from visiting various sacred regions and asylums. Upon seeing her father seated with Narada, Savitri bowed down to worship their feet. Narada, ever curious, asked Savitri about her journey and why she hadn't been married. Yet given that she was now of marriageable age, Aswapati explained that Savitri had indeed been sent on a mission to find a suitable husband, and he invited Narada to listen as his daughter recounted the tale. Savitri began to speak, her words pouring out like a gentle stream. "Father, I found a worthy suitor in Prince Satyavan, son of King Duyatsana," she said. "He's a virtuous Kshatriya king who, despite being blind, has adopted great vows and practices ascetic austerities in the woods." Savitri's eyes shone with devotion as she described her chosen husband. "I've accepted him in my heart as my lord, for he's fit to be my husband." Narada's expression turned serious. "Alas, O King, Savitri has committed a great wrong," he said. "She doesn't know that this Satyavan is destined to die within a year." Narada explained that the prince's father spoke the truth, and his mother was also truthful in her speech, which was why the Brahmins had named their son Satyavan. Aswapati asked if Prince Satyavan possessed of all the virtues Narada had mentioned. The sage replied in energy, "He's like the sun in wisdom, like Vryaspati, brave like Indra, and forgiving like the earth itself." Aswapati pressed on, asking about his son's generosity, devotion to Brahmanas, and physical beauty. Narada described Satyavan as being like Rantidava in bestowing gifts, Siva in truthfulness of speech, Yayati and magnanimity, and the moon in beauty. Aswapati was taken aback by Narada's glowing description of his son-in-law to be. He asked if there were any defects in Satyavan's character, to which Narada replied, "He has one great flaw. Within a year from this day, he will cast off his mortal coil." Aswapati was torn between his love for Savitri and the sage's words of warning. Savitri, however, remained steadfast. The death and fall. But once, she said, a daughter can be given away only once, and a person can say, "I give away only once. I have chosen my husband with a life, short or long, possessed of virtues or bereft of." In this sacred forest, where the wise sages dwelled, King Duyatsana, a just ruler, resided with his devoted wife. The king's life was marked by simplicity and devotion to the pursuit of virtue. His kingdom had been lost, but he continued to live in the woods, practicing self-control and living a regulated life. One day, as he sat under the shade of a majestic sala tree, surrounded by the quiet of nature, he was visited by King Aswapati, accompanied by his twice-born ones. The king's daughter Savitri, a beautiful and accomplished young woman, had been chosen for marriage to Satyavan, a noble prince who lived in exile with his father. King Aswapati, filled with joy and gratitude, approached the royal sage Duyatsana with reverence and humility. He introduced himself and explained that he had come to ask for the hand of his daughter in marriage. To the young prince, the king offered him a seat, a cow in the argaya, a token of respect, and asked about the purpose of his visit. King Aswapati spoke from the heart. "O royal sage, I have come with love and devotion. My daughter is dear to me, and I wish her happiness. Satyavan is a noble prince, and I believe that their union will bring prosperity and joy to both our families." He appealed to Duyatsana's sense of compassion and equality, reminding him that they were both kings, worthy of an audience. Duyatsana, moved by the king's words, remembered his own desire for an audience with Aswapati. Though he had hesitated earlier due to his loss of kingdom, he now saw an opportunity to fulfill his wish with a warm heart. He agreed to the union and welcomed King Aswapati as a guest of two kings, then summoned all the twice-born ones residing in the forest hermitages to perform the sacred rites of marriage. The ceremony was conducted with great pomp and splendor, and Savitri was given suitable robes and ornaments by her father as the newlyweds returned to their abode. Satyavan's joy knew no bounds, while Savitri was overjoyed at having gained a husband who was dear to her heart. She shook her royal attire and donned simple clothes, dedicating herself to serving her in-laws with humility and devotion. Savitri's kindness and virtues soon won the hearts of everyone in the forest of Silam. She pleased her mother-in-law by attending to her needs and adorning her with robes and ornaments. Her father-in-law was revered as a god by Savitri, who controlled her speech and showed utmost respect with her sweet words, skillful hands, and even temper. She won over her husband's heart. They lived in the forest of Silam, practicing ascetic austerities together. The couple's love continued to grow. In a distant land, King Duryodhana's daughter Savitri was known for her unwavering devotion and unshakable resolve. She had heard the words of the celestial sage Narada, foretelling the untimely death of her husband Satyavan on the fourth day. Following their conversation, undeterred by this ominous prophecy, Savitri began to observe the Triratra, vow fasting, for 3 consecutive nights in a desperate bid to alter fate. He appointed hour drew near. The king's sorrow deepened upon learning of his daughter-in-law's self-imposed penance. Rising from his throne, he approached Savitri and expressed his concern. This vow you have undertaken is extremely difficult. It is hard for anyone to fast for 3 nights together. But Savitri stood firm, her eyes shining with determination. You need not worry, father, she said. I have made up my mind to complete this task, and perseverance is the key to fulfilling one's vow. The king was taken aback by his daughter-in-law's unwavering commitment. He could only offer words of encouragement, one such as, I should say, do not break your vow, but rather see it through to its end. And so with a heavy heart, he watched Savitri continue her fast, her body growing weaker by the hour. As the sun began to rise on the 4th day, Savitri's anguish reached new heights. She had spent the previous night in torment, her mind racing with thoughts of the impending loss that awaited her. Yet she refused to break her vow and instead immersed herself in contemplation, accepting the words of the ascetics who had blessed her with a promise made. You never suffer widowhood. The morning sun cast its warm rays upon the royal court, and Savitri's father-in-law and mother-in-law approached her, their faces filled with concern. You have completed your vow, they said. It is time for you to eat. But Savitri shook her head. I will not break my fast until the sun sets tonight. This is my resolve, and I will see it through. As she spoke these words, Satyavan emerged from his chambers, his axe slung over his shoulder. He was bound for the woods, determined to bring back fruits for their family's sacrificial fire. Savitri's eyes locked onto her husband, and with a mixture of sadness and determination, she asked to accompany him on his journey. Satyavan was taken aback by his wife's request. You have never ventured into the forest before, he said, and after fasting for 3 nights, you must be exhausted. But Savitri stood firm, her voice unwavering. I do not feel fatigue from my fast, and I am resolved to accompany you with the permission of both Duryodhana. In the dense forest, Satyavan and his wife Savitri were busy gathering fruits and filling their baskets. As they worked, Satyavan began to feel exhausted from the physical labor, and his head started to itch. He complained to Savitri, Oh, Savitri, my head is pounding, and I feel like I am being pierced by countless darts. I faint. I need to rest. Savitri quickly came to her husband's side and sat down beside him, placing his head on her lap as she held him. She began to calculate the time, thinking about Narada's words. Suddenly a person clad in red attire appeared before them. He was tall, with a diadem on his head, and had eyes that shone like the sun. His presence was both majestic and intimidating. The stranger revealed himself as Yama, the god of death, who had come to take Satyavan's life. Savitri, undaunted by Yama's powers, approached him with reverence and asked, Who are you, great one? What is your purpose here? Yama replied that he was there to take Satyavan away, as his time on earth had come to an end. Savitri pleaded with Yama, explaining that she had heard about the messengers of death coming to take people away, but never in person. She asked why Yama himself had come, and he explained that it was because Satyavan was a virtuous man who deserved not to be taken by his emissaries. As Yama prepared to take Satyavan's life, Savitri gently placed her husband's head on the ground and rose to speak with Yama. She asked him about his intentions and why he had come personally. Yama explained that it was because of Satyavan's virtues and beauty, and that he wanted to spare him from suffering Yuma. Then pulled out a small person bound in a noose from Sayevan's body. This was the vital essence, which left the body as lifeless, and dull Savitri, overwhelmed with grief, followed Yuma as he carried her husband away despite his warnings to return home and perform the funeral rites. She insisted on following him. Yuma was impressed by Savitri's devotion, asceticism, and intelligence. He granted her 2 boons, one for her father-in-law who had lost his kingdom and sight, and another for 100 sons. Or her husband. With each boon Yuma praised Savitri's words, which were filled with wisdom and compassion. Savitri continued to follow Yuma, pleading with him not to take her husband away. She explained that the virtuous should show mercy to all creatures, even their enemies, and that everything in this world was like Sayevan. Fragile and vulnerable, moved by Savitri's words, Yuma granted her a 3rd boon. In the midst of a dense forest, King Dyumatsna sat on a tree, stump, his eyes closed in darkness. His wife Savia stood beside him, her face etched with worry. For days they had been searching for their son Sayevan, who had gone to the woods to gather firewood. The king's blindness had added to their distress, but now that he had regained his sight, he was determined to find his son. The sun began to set. Dyumatsna and Savia made their way through the forest, visiting every asylum and hermitage in search of Sayevan. They called out his name, hoping against hope that he would answer. But as night fell, they returned to their own hermitage. Exhausted and heartbroken, the old couple was comforted by the wise words of the Brahmins who lived with them. Suvarkas, a truthful Brahma, spoke up, saying, considering Savitri's austere life and self-restraint, there can be no doubt that Sayevan lives. The other rishis echoed his sentiments, each one sharing their own reasons for believing in the young couple's good fortune. Dyumatsna listened intently to their words, and slowly a glimmer of hope returned to his heart. But just as he was starting to feel a sense of ease, Savitri and Sayevan appeared at the hermitage, their faces radiant with joy. The Brahmins welcomed them warmly, congratulating Dyumatsna on his reunion with his son. They sat down together. The rishis asked Sayevan about his delay in returning to the hermitage. He explained that he had fallen asleep while working in the forest and had no memory of how long. He was unconscious. The Brahmins were satisfied with his answer, but Gautama, a wise old sage, turned to Savitri and said, you know the truth behind your husband's sudden restoration to sight. We wish to hear it from you. Savitri's eyes sparkled as she began to tell her story. She explained how Narada had predicted Satyavan's death on that very day, but she could not bear to be separated from him. So she had praised Yama, the god of death, and begged for his mercy. Yama had granted her 5 boons. Dyumatsna would regain his sight, and his kingdom. Savia would have 100 sons. Savitri herself would have 100 sons, and Sayevan would live for 400 years. The rishis were amazed by Savitri's bravery and devotion to her husband. They praised her as a true goddess, and their words of admiration echoed through the forest. As they prepared to leave, Gautama said, by your virtue, O chaste lady, you have rescued the royal family from. As the night gave way to dawn, the hermitage came alive with the mourning rites of its inhabitants. The mighty sages, led by Markandeya, stood together, their eyes shining with a deep devotion. They had been speaking to Dyumatsna, the king, about the blessings that Savitri, his wife, had brought upon them. Yet despite their words, the king's doubts lingered. Just then a large group of people from Salwa arrived at the hermitage, their faces filled with excitement and relief. They bore tidings of a great victory. The enemy who had usurped Dyumatsna's throne had been slain by his own minister. The people of Salwa told the king that upon hearing the news, his subjects had rallied behind him, declaring, whether he sees or not, even he shall be our king. They said they had come to escort Dyumatsna back to his city, and that his chariot and army were at the ready. The king's eyes widened as he listened to their words. He beheld his people eager for his return, and the grandeur of his own forces gathered outside. The sages too gazed upon him with a mixture of awe and reverence. Markandeya, the sage, looked on with a knowing smile. Dyumatsna, moved by the devotion of his people, decided to return to his city. He worshipped the sages who blessed him. In return, the king set out accompanied by Savia and Savitri, who rode in a magnificent vehicle borne by strong shutters. As they departed, the priests joyfully installed Dyumatsna on his throne with his son as prince regent. Years passed, but the fortunes of Salwa's kingdom continued to rise. Savitri gave birth to a century of brave sons, each one a warrior in their own right. Her fame spread far and wide, and she became a beacon of hope for her family and people. But that was not all. She also had a century of powerful brothers born to Aswapati, the lord of the Madras, by Malavian. So Savitri's story became a testament to her power and devotion. She had lifted herself her parents, and her in-laws from a pitiable plight to one of great fortune. Her legend inspired others, including the gentle daughter of Drupada, who would go on to rescue those who sought refuge with her. As Vesapaina finished recounting Savitri's tale, he gazed at Arjuna, the son of Pandu, and said, thus exhorted by that high-souled sage, you too can live in peace free from anxiety. Listen to this story with reverence, and you shall attain happiness, success, and never meet with misery. In the midst of their 13th year of exile, Yudhishthira, the virtuous king of the Pandavas, confided to his trusted advisor Lomasa about an intense fear he harbored regarding Karna. Lomasa conveyed this concern to Indra, the mighty god, who responded with a message for Yudhishthira: that deep-seated fear of yours, which you dare not express to anyone, I shall lift after Arjuna departs from here, curious about the nature of this unspoken fear. Janimjaya, a wise and just king, asked Vesapaina to recount the story behind Yudhishthira's trepidation. Vesapaina began his tale by describing how Sakra, the king of the gods, had learned that Karna was willing to part with his precious earrings, moved by a desire to benefit the Pandavas. Sakra resolved to beg these ornaments from Karna himself with the intention of acquiring the earrings. Sakra assumed the guise of a Brahmana and appeared in Karna's dreams. In this dream vision, Surya, the radiant god, revealed himself to Karna as a wise and kind Brahmana. He cautioned Karna about the true intentions of Sakra, who was disguising himself as a beggar. Surya explained that if Karna were to give away his earrings, his life would be shortened and he would meet an untimely death. On the other hand, if he refused to part with them, his fame would spread far and wide, and he would be invincible in battle. Karna awoke from his dream, deeply moved by Surya's words of wisdom. He called out to the mysterious Brahmana, asking him to reveal his true identity. The Brahmana replied that he was Surya, the god with 1,000 rays who had come to guide Karna along the path of righteousness. Karna shared Surya's words with no one, but instead he reflected on the counsel given to him. He realized that giving away his earrings would indeed shorten his life, but it would also bring him eternal fame and renown. Convinced that his vow was to serve superior Brahmanas, Karna decided to part with his precious ornaments. When Sakra came to beg for them, as the gods watched over the events unfolding on earth, they knew that Karna's fate was sealed. His resolve to give away his earrings would lead him down a path of glory and sacrifice, but also one of inevitable doom. The stage was set for a confrontation between Karna and Sakra, a battle that would decide not only the destiny of the mighty warrior, but also the future of the Pandavas. In the stillness of the night, as the stars twinkled above Karna's,
In the sacred presence of Surya, the radiant god of the sun, Karna, stood before him, his heart aglow with devotion. The god's words dripped like nectar on the parched earth as he counseled Karna. My son, never do anything that brings harm to yourself or your loved ones. Your sons, wives, father, and mother, they are precious to you only. While you live, Surya's voice was a gentle breeze on a summer day as he spoke of the fleeting nature of fame. People crave renown in this world and lasting glory in heaven, but they do not wish to sacrifice their bodies for it. He gazed at Karna with eyes that shone like the morning sun. But you, O bull among men, desire undying fame, even if it costs your life. I warn you, she will snatch away your life without hesitation. Karna listened intently as Surya's words woo, but tapestry of wisdom. The god continued, in this world family is everything only to the living. When we are alive, our prowess and fame bring us honor, but when we die, even the most resplendent glory is reduced to nothing. Like a garland of flowers around a lifeless corpse, Surya's voice took on a tone of paternal affection as he spoke of his love for Karna. I tell you this because I have come to regard you as my own, and those who worship me are always protected by me. He paused, collecting his thoughts before continuing. Besides, there is a profound mystery in all this ordained by fate. But do not worry, my son, trust in my words. As the god spoke, Karna's mind began to grasp the deeper meaning behind Surya's counsel. Surya's voice grew softer still as he warned his devotee of the impending battle with Arjuna. When the wielder of the thunderbolt asks for your earrings, Do not give them to him, O Reva's son, with those beautiful earrings. You shine like the moon between the Vaisika constellations. Shuria's words were laced with a hint of mystery as he revealed that fame is only meaningful while one lives. Therefore, when the Lord of the Celestials asks for your earrings, refuse him. You must be clever and persuasive in your responses, O sinless one. The god's eyes sparkled like diamonds as he encouraged Karna to use his wit and reason to outsmart Indra. As Surya finished speaking, Karna felt a sense of resolve within himself. He knew that with the god's guidance, he would emerge victorious in battle with the newfound understanding. Karna vowed to heed Surya's words and protect his earrings at all costs, for it was only through their possession that he could van.
The sun had set on Karna's day, casting a warm orange glow over the landscape. He stood before his lord, Surya, his eyes cast downward in reverence. As though, O Lord of splendor, he began his voice. Filled with devotion, knowest me, for the worshipper. So also thou knowest that there is nothing which I cannot give away in charity. Karna's words flowed from his heart. Like a river, each phrase a testament to his unwavering dedication. He spoke of the love he felt for Surya, of how his own family and friends paled in comparison. Thou knowest, O maker of light, he said, his voice trembling with emotion, that high-souled persons bear a loving regard for their dear worshipper. Surya's radiant form seemed to shine brighter as Karna spoke, his eyes burning with an inner fire. He listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Karna finished, the Lord of the gods nodded slowly, his voice like thunder on a summer day. I know all this, O son, he said, his words dripping with warmth. And yet I must warn you, Arjuna is no ordinary warrior. He wields the power of the gods, and Phalguna's fate hangs in the balance. Karna's face set in determination as Surya spoke, his jaw clenched in defiance. The Lord of the gods continued to speak, his words laced with a subtle urgency. If you give away your earrings to the wielder of the thunderbolt, he said, you should also secure victory by speaking unto him, saying, although of 100 sacrifices I shall give the earrings under a condition. Surya's voice dropped to a whisper as he revealed the true nature of Arjuna's desire to deprive Karna of his greatest strength. The thousand-rayed deity vanished as suddenly as he appeared, leaving Karna to ponder the weight of his words. The next day dawned bright and clear with Surya shining like a beacon in the morning sky. Karna approached him once more, eager to share his dream from the previous night. Vrisha listened intently as Karna recounted every detail, his eyes wide with wonder. When he finished, Surya's smile lit up the landscape, illuminating the faces of all who stood before him at his even. So the Lord of the gods said, his voice dripping with conviction, Arjuna will be your foe, and Phalguna's fate hangs in the balance. Karna's eyes narrowed as he listened to Surya's words, the plan forming in his mind like a seed taking root. He knew what he must do, secure the infallible dart of the chief of the celestials, that he might vanquish Arjuna. And in the court of King Janamejaya, a young prince with an insatiable curiosity, a burning question had been lit within his heart. He turned to his revered sage Vaisapayana and asked, tell me, O wise one, what secret was kept hidden from Karna by the radiant deity? What were those earrings and that coat of armor made of, and where did they come from? The king's eyes shone with eagerness as he implored his sage to reveal all. Vaisapayana, a master of ancient lore and wisdom, began his tale. Once upon a time, he said, a Brahmana of great stature and energy appeared before King Kantivoja. He was an ascetic adorned with matted locks and a bird that flowed like the sun's rays. His speech was sweet as honey, and his eyes sparkled with a deep understanding of the Vedas. The sage paused for a moment, allowing the king to absorb the vivid image of this Brahmana. Vaisapayana continued, approached King Kantivoja with humility and respect, saying, I wish to live as a guest in your house, feeding on alms from you. I promise not to cause any displeasure to you or your followers. The king, pleased by the Brahmana's words, welcomed him into his home, declaring, may it be so. You are welcome to stay with us. The sage then turned to King Janamejaya and said, it was at this time that Kantivoja introduced the Brahmana to his daughter Pritha, a young woman of great virtue and beauty. The king instructed Pritha to attend to the Brahmana's needs with reverence, saying, this is a man of great ascetic merit, worthy of our respect. You must tend to him with a concentrated mind, just as you have always been attentive to your elders and superiors. As Vaisampayanus spoke, King Janamejaya listened intently, his eyes fixed on the sage's face. He knew that this tale was more than just a story. It held secrets of ancient wisdom and the intricate web of relationships between kings, brahmanas, and their subjects. The king leaned forward, his voice filled with curiosity. And what became of Pritha? Did she tend to the Brahmana as her father had instructed? Vaisampayanus smiled, knowing that the true story was about to unfold. In the opulent palace of Hastinapura, Queen Kunti stood before her husband, King Madrai's brother Kuntiboja, with a determined look on her face. She had always been devoted to the Brahmanas, and now she was eager to prove it once again. With a deep bow she began to speak to Kuntiboja. "O king, I promise you that I will serve that esteemed Brahmana with a concentrated mind. It is my nature to worship the twice-born ones, and in this case it would bring me great joy and prosperity." Kuntiboja smiled, pleased with his sister-in-law's devotion. He knew that she was telling the truth, for Kunti had always been kind-hearted and respectful towards the Brahmanas. "You are a true embodiment of virtue, Kunti," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "I have no doubt that you will please even the most discerning Brahmanas." They spoke the king's thoughts, turned to the Brahmana who would be residing in their palace. He knew that this man was a great scholar and a devout follower of the Vedas. The king wanted to ensure that he was treated with the utmost respect and care. "Kunti," he said, "I entrust you with the task of serving our guest. You must attend to his every need just as if he were a god." Kunti nodded eagerly, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. She knew that this was an opportunity for her to prove herself, not only to Kuntiboja, but also to the Brahmana himself. "I will do everything in my power to please him, O king," she promised. "I will wait upon him regularly and ensure that he has all the comforts he needs." As the days passed, Kunti devoted herself to serving the Brahmana with unwavering dedication. She would rise early each morning before the sun had risen to prepare his breakfast and offer her respects. The Brahmana was a kind and gentle soul who appreciated Kunti's devotion and kindness. The king watched over Kunti with pride, seeing how she had taken on the responsibility of serving their guests with such enthusiasm. He knew that she was doing it not only for him, but also for herself, as a way to cultivate good karma and ensure her own well-being, and so he continued to encourage and support her in her endeavors. As the days turned into weeks, Kunti's relationship with the Brahmana deepened. She would spend hours listening to his teachings and learning from his vast knowledge of the Vedas. The Brahmana, in turn, was grateful for her company and appreciated her eagerness to learn. In time, the king decided to reward Kunti's devotion by assigning her a special role in their palace. He gave her charge of overseeing the worship and rituals. But in a small kingdom, a wise and mighty monarch ruled over his people with kindness and justice. His daughter Pritha was a beautiful and gentle maiden who had taken a vow to serve a Brahmana of great repute, known for his rigid vows and austere life. Vastila Brahmana, whose name was not spoken, will often arrive at the kingdom unannounced, sometimes in the evening or even at night. Despite the inconvenience this caused, Pritha welcomed him with open arms, offering him sumptuous food, drink, and a comfortable bed. She attended to his every need, increasing her attentions day by day rather than diminishing them. Even when the Brahmana spoke harshly to her, finding fault in her arrangements or addressing her with stern words, Pritha remained patient and devoted. The Brahmana would sometimes return after the appointed hour had long passed, and on occasions when food was scarce he would demand it from her. Yet she would obey, saying, "All is ready," even when it wasn't. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Pritha's dedication to the Brahmana only grew stronger. Her father, Kuntiboja, would ask her every morning and evening if the Brahmana was satisfied with her ministrations, and she would reply with a smile, "Exceedingly well." The king's delight in his daughter's devotion knew no bounds. A full year passed before the Brahmana found fault in Pritha's service. Overjoyed by her unwavering dedication, he praised her, saying, "O gentle maid, I have been well pleased with the attentions you, thou, O blessed girl, ask, even for such boons as are difficult of being obtained by man in this world, and obtaining which thou mayst surpass in fame all the women in this world." Pritha's response was humble and kind. She said, "Everything hath already been done in my behalf, since thou, O chief of those that are versed in the Vedas, and my father also had been pleased with me as regards the boons. I consider them as already obtained by me, O Brahmana." The Brahmana was taken aback by her words, but then he revealed a secret to her. He said, "If thou dost not wish to obtain boons from me, do thou then take this mantra: for invoking the celestials. Anyone amongst the celestials whom thou mayst invoke by uttering this mantra will appear before thee and be under thee power, willing or not, by virtue of this mantra. That deity in gentle guise and assuming the obedient attitude of slave will become subject to the power. Pritha was hesitant at first, fearing a curse, but eventually she accepted the Brahmana's gift. He imparted to her the mantras recited in the beginning. In the tranquil atmosphere of her chamber, Kunti Devi sat on a rich bed, lost in thought. Her mind wandered as she pondered over the mantras bestowed upon her by the wise Brahmana. She had been given these sacred words with great reverence and care, but their true nature and power remained unknown to her. As she sat there, a sudden change occurred within her. The approaching season of life was evident, and Kunti felt an overwhelming sense of shame wash over her. Unmarried, and still young, the weight of this reality settled upon her like a shroud. Yet in the midst of these turbulent emotions, she gazed out at the rising solar orb, its golden light illuminating the eastern horizon, entranced by the beauty of the morning sun. Kunti's eyes remained riveted on its radiant form. The solar orb seemed to captivate her very being, and as she beheld it, a wondrous transformation took place within her. She was gifted with celestial sight, allowing her to perceive the world in a new and profound way. As she gazed deeper into the sun's splendor, Kunti saw the god Surya himself standing before her. His divine form shone like polished gold, adorned with majestic earrings that sparkled like precious jewels. The god's mighty arms and neck marked with lines like a conch shell left no doubt about his divine nature. Surya smelled his radiance, illuminating all directions. As he approached Kunti with a gentle bow, he acknowledged her power over him, acknowledging the potency of the mantra she had invoked. The god's words were sweet and melodious. O gentle maid, I come to you in obedience to your call, subject as I am to your will. What shall I do for you? Tell me, and I shall fulfill your desire. Kunti's response was a mixture of fear and shame. She knew that her actions had consequences, and the god's words carried weight. With trembling voice, she implored Surya to return to his own realm, explaining that her invocation was born from curiosity alone. However, Surya would not be swayed. So easily revealed to Kunti that he had come with a purpose, driven by his desire for union with her. The god's words carried an undercurrent of persuasion and even threat, warning Kunti that if she refused him, the consequences would be dire, not just for herself, but also for her father and the wise Brahmana who had given her the mantras. As Surya spoke, Kunti gazed upward to behold the celestial assembly gathered in the firmament. The gods stood watching her with derisive smiles, their eyes filled with amusement at the god's predicament. It was then that Kunti realized the true extent of her power and the responsibility that came with it. With a resolute heart, in the scorching heat of a summer day, Kunti, the beautiful daughter of King Kuntibhojya, found herself face to face with the mighty sun god Surya. Despite her noble words and sweet entreaties, she was unable to dissuade him from his intentions, fearing his curse. Kunti reflected on the consequences of her actions, thinking deeply about how her innocent father and the Brahmana would escape the wrath of Surya. She pondered. A sense of utter confusion washed over her, and she became lost and thought, afraid of being reproached by her friends if she obeyed Surya, and equally afraid of his curse if she disobeyed him. Kunti trembled with fear. She then spoke out, her voice barely above. "O whisper, O God, as my father and mother and friends are still living, this violation of duty on my part should not take place." Her words were laced with bashfulness, and she feared the consequences of her action. Surya, however, smiled benevolently upon Kunti. He explained that a virgin was free to choose her desires, and that his intentions were pure. "You shall remain a virgin after having gratified me," he said, "and your son will be mighty armed and illustrious." Kunti's fear began to fade as she realized the god's words were laced with kindness. With a sense of trepidation still lingering in her heart, Kunti asked Surya for one final boon. She wanted her child to be decked in celestial armor made from the nectar of the gods, Amrita. Surya agreed, assuring her that his child would be mighty armed and strong, with earrings and a coat of mail made from the very essence of the divinity. As Kunti's resolve was strengthened, she consented to Surya's request. The god then touched her on the nail, imbuing her with his energy through yoga power. At that moment, Kunti felt herself becoming stupid, as if a storm had swept over her. She fell down on her bed, deprived of her senses. As Surya prepared to depart, he spoke words of reassurance to the unconscious Kunti. "You shall bring forth a son who will become the foremost of all wielders of weapons. He said at the same time, "You shall remain a virgin." With those vile words, Shriya vanished into thin air as Kantai regained her consciousness. She felt a sense of wonder and awe wash over her. She knew that she had been chosen by the sun god himself to bear his child, and that their offspring would be a mighty warrior, and so with a newfound sense of purpose Kantai lay back on her bitter heart, filled with hope and expectation, for it was on the first day of the lighted fortnight during the 10th month of the year that Pritha conceived a son, a being so divine he resembled the Lord of the Stars. The maiden's friends were unaware of her condition, and she carefully concealed it from them, living in seclusion within the apartments assigned to the maidens. Only her nurse knew the truth. As the days passed, Pritha's belly grew, and with the blessings of the deity she gave birth to a son who embodied the very essence of his father, the divine Shriya. The child was wrapped in a coat of mail adorned with brilliant earrings, and possessed eyes like a lion's and shudders, strong as a bull, tears streaming down her face. Pritha consulted with her nurse, and placed the infant in a wicker box lined with soft sheets and a costly pillow. She sealed it with wax and wrapped it in a rich cover with a heavy heart. She carried the basket to the river Aswa, consigning it to its waters. Though aware that an unmarried girl bearing offspring was considered improper, Pritha's love for her child overcame all concerns as she wept. Kantai uttered words of hope and protection for her son. "May good fortune be yours, dear one, wherever you may roam, on land, in water, or in the celestial realms. May your paths always be auspicious, and may no obstacle stand in your way. May those who encounter you have their hearts free from hostility towards you," she implored Varun, the Lord of Waters, to protect her son in his journey, Shriya, the Divine Father, to watch over him everywhere, and the entity as Vasus, Rudras, Sandhyas, Viswavas, Maruts, and the cardinal points with Indra at their helm to safeguard him at all times. As Kantai's words faded into the night air, she gently placed the basket on the waters of the Eswa. Though her heart etched with longing, she knew it was best to conceal her secret from her father and the world. The nurse too wept as they cast the basket into the river. At dead of night the currents carried the wicker box downstream, floating from the Aswa to the Charmanwati, then to the Yamuna, and finally to the Ganga. As it drifted on the waves, the child within remained alive, sustained by his coat of mail earrings made of amrita and the ordnance of destiny. The currents eventually brought the basket to the city of Champa, ruled by a member of the Sota tribe. There the child lay hidden, awaiting his fate, and the day when he would emerge strong and radiant like the divine Shriya himself. The sun was setting over the tranquil waters of the Ganga River, casting a warm orange glow on its surface. It was here that Adhirath, a charioteer and close friend of Dhritarashtra, and had come with his wife Radha to bathe and pay their respects to the sacred river. Radha, renowned for her unparalleled beauty, had always longed for a child. But fate had not been kind to them. As they stood on the river bank, Radha's eyes scanned the water, searching for any sign of the divine. Subtly, the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore caught their attention. A small box adorned with precious ornaments and capable of protecting from harm was being carried by the currents towards them. Intrigued, Adhirath carefully retrieved the box, and together they examined its contents. Inside they found a magnificent infant, resplendent in golden armor, his face radiant with an otherworldly beauty. As Radha gazed upon the child, her eyes widened in wonder. "This must be a gift from the gods," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Adhirath's eyes mirrored hers, and he spoke with conviction. "Since I was born, I have never seen such a marvel. This child is surely of celestial birth." Radha took the infant into her arms, and as they gazed at him in wonder, Adhirath declared, "This child shall be named Vasisna, for he shines like the morning sun." As the years passed, Vasisna grew strong and powerful under Radha's loving care. He was trained in the art of warfare by Adhirath himself, who had other sons born to him later. But it was clear that Vasisna was no ordinary child. His prowess in battle and his unmatched beauty set him apart from others. For the unaware of her son's whereabouts had sent spies to search for a sign of Karna, the child she had given up years ago, and so they discovered Vasisna growing up amidst the Angas as the eldest son of a charioteer. His fame soon spread far and wide, and he became known as Vrisha's. Vasisna matured. He traveled to Hastinapura with Adhirath's blessing, seeking out Drona, the renowned teacher, to learn the art of warfare from him. It was here that he befriended Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra's eldest son, and together They would often engage in spirited conversations about battle tactics. Karna proved to be a prodigy, mastering all four kinds of weapons under Drola's guidance. His prowess with a bow earned him great renown, and his friendship with Duryodhana only strengthened their bond. But amidst this newfound camaraderie, Karna's heart harbored a secret. He was in truth the son of. In the midst of a serene forest, a mysterious Brahmana appeared before Karna. The son of Atirath of the Brahmana's eyes sparkled